ever get that feeling like the night itself is watching you? Like the darkness ain't just empty space, but something breathing, waiting. I used to laugh at stories like that. Thought it was just long hours messing with people's heads. Superstitious nonsense. Ghost stories drivers told to keep each other awake on graveyard shifts. But that was before last winter. Before I got routed onto that fog-covered road. Before I heard the thumping in the trailer. Before the handprints. My name's Tara. I've been a long-haul trucker for 15 years. Seen it all. Whiteouts, jackknives, backwater gas stations that look like serial killer bait. But nothing, I mean nothing, prepared me for that night. I was hauling an empty trailer back to the depot. Just finished a delivery out in the mountains and figured I'd take the shortcut back home. Route 47, a 2-lane blacktop that winds through the dense forests outside of Skamania County. My GPS flagged a quicker detour. One I didn't recognize but figured it must have been recently added. I was already tired, behind schedule, and craving coffee. So I took it. Funny how one small decision can crack your world wide open. At first, everything seemed normal. A little colder than I expected, sure, but it's the Pacific Northwest in late November. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then I hit the fog. Thick, soupy stuff. The kind you could drown in. It clung to the windshield, poured over the hood, swallowed the headlights. I slowed to a crawl, the hum of the engine the only thing keeping me sane. And then, the first thump. It wasn't loud, just a single dull sound, like a boot hitting metal from underneath the trailer. I frowned, leaned forward, trying to listen over the rumble of the truck. Nothing else. Maybe I rolled over a fallen branch. A few minutes later, another thump. Louder this time. More deliberate. It didn't sound like debris. It sounded like a fist. I pulled over, flipped on my hazards, grabbed my flashlight from the dash. The night was dead quiet outside. No wind, no crickets, just silence and that awful curtain of fog. I walked around the trailer, checking the tires. All good. Nothing tangled in the axles. No sign of wildlife. But the feeling in my gut, it was heavy, like I was being watched. Still, I chalked it up to nerves and climbed back in. 10 minutes down the road, it happened again. 2 sharp bangs this time, followed by what I swear was a dragging noise. Like something was shifting across the metal floor of the trailer. I checked the side mirrors. Nothing. I hit the interior lights. Still nothing. But my hands were shaking on the wheel now. I started talking to myself. It's just stress. Maybe a raccoon somehow got in. Yeah, that's all. I drove another mile. Then I heard breathing. Not mine. Deep, steady inhales, coming from behind me. I turned slowly, expecting to see someone in the sleeper bunk. But it was empty. Still the sound lingered. Faint. Hollow. I gripped the wheel so tight I thought I'd snap it in half. My foot stayed on the gas. That's when I noticed it. Footprints. On the side mirror. Small, bare footprints. Wet. As if someone had climbed onto the cab and pressed their foot against the glass. I hit the brakes so hard my rig fishtailed. My flashlight beam trembled as I stepped outside. I circled the cab, heart pounding like a war drum. No one. But when I looked closer at the windshield, there it was again. A handprint slid down the inside of the glass. I jumped back in, slammed the doors shut, locked them all. My GPS had reset. The map was blank. No signal. Not even on the CB. I tried channel 19, just static. I grabbed the manifest from the passenger seat, hoping to calm myself with some good old-fashioned paperwork. That's when I saw it. Something scrawled at the bottom in faded pencil. Not printed. Not part of the official form. Do not open after midnight. I glanced at the dash clock. 12:03 a.m. The trailer jolted. I mean, actually bounced on the axles, like something inside had just jumped. I didn't move. Couldn't. My fingers went numb. Then came the scratching. Faint at first, then louder, metal on metal, like claws or nails raking the floor. I shut my eyes, told myself this wasn't happening. But the moment I opened them, my headlights went out, complete blackout. Then tap, 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 on the driver's side window. I turned slowly. My breath hitched. No one was there, but the glass was fogging. From the outside. No, wait, no. From the inside. Then came the thumping again, only this time. It wasn't underneath. It was on the roof. Louder, heavier, rhythmic. Whatever it was moving across the top of the trailer. I threw the rig into gear and floored it. Didn't care where I was going. Just needed to put miles between me and whatever had crawled into that trailer. But the faster I went, the louder it got. Thump, thump, thump. Something, or someone, was running along the top, keeping pace. I swerved, trying to shake it. The noise stopped. I glanced in the rear view. For a split second, I saw a shadow. Humanoid, kneeling on the trailer roof, watching me. Then it dropped off into the fog. I drove until the road spit me out into a small rest stop I didn't even remember on the map. The lights were flickering like bad horror movie cliches. But I didn't care. I slammed on the brakes, grabbed my crowbar, and stumbled out of the cab. I wasn't leaving without knowing what the hell was going on. I crept to the back of the trailer, crowbar in hand. My breath puffed in front of me like smoke. I flung open the trailer doors. Empty, but not clean. The floor was slick, wet, and not with water. It was blood, and drawn across the floor in long looping strokes were symbols, circles, crosses, sharp-edged markings that looked wrong, ancient. I stepped back, heart about to rupture. And then I remembered something. A guy back at the yard had told me a story, some half-joke about a trailer that had been pulled from rotation. Hazmat cleanup. Something about a girl who got locked in by accident. She died in there, tried clawing her way out. They said her handprints were still in the corners. The cleanup was never finished. That trailer, it wasn't supposed to be on the road. And the manifest? It wasn't mine. It had been misfiled. I'd hooked up to the wrong unit. Or maybe it hooked onto me. I drove straight through till morning. Didn't stop. Didn't blink. When I finally reached the depot, I pulled into the yard, stepped out into the daylight, and circled the back one last time. What I saw made my knees buckle. Handprints, dozens of them, pressed into the grime on the trailer's rear door, all of them pointing outward, all streaked in red. Like someone, no, like many someones, had been trying to escape. I called dispatch. They checked the trailer. Clean. Like spotless clean. No blood. No prints. The symbols were gone. The footage from my dash cam? Corrupted. The manifest? Gone. Nothing handwritten. No pencil marks. But the part that sticks with me? As I drove away from the yard, I glanced in the mirror. And through the haze hanging over the trees, I saw her. A girl, barefoot, hair soaked, one arm raised, waving, or calling me back. And now, every so often, when the road gets quiet and the fog starts to roll in, I hear the thump, right beneath my feet. So if you're ever out there, driving alone at night, and you hear something crawling around in your empty trailer, don't stop, whatever it is. It's not on the manifest. I've been a long-haul trucker for over 2 decades now. I've driven through every kind of terrain, weather, and time zone you can imagine. And if there's one thing I've come to enjoy the most, it's twilight. That soft, golden hour where everything feels quiet, settled. Most nights, it's when I feel the most peace. This was one of those evenings. I was heading west on Interstate 70. The sky fading into burnt orange, the sun dipping just low enough to cast long shadows over the cracked asphalt. The road was empty, the hum of my tires the only sound in the world. I had the window cracked just enough to let in the cool breeze, and a country station playing low on the radio. It felt like the kind of night where nothing could go wrong. Then I saw him, a man standing still at the side of the freeway exit, just before a sign that read Merrow's Hollow. I'd never heard of that town. His thumb was out, but he didn't wave or move. He just stared, right at me, like he was waiting for me specifically. I don't usually stop for hitchhikers, not anymore, but something about him, it was like gravity. My hands turned the wheel before I even thought about it. He climbed in without a word, nodded once. His clothes were old, worn, layers of denim and canvas that looked soaked through. But the sky was clear, bone dry. He carried no luggage except for a small leather backpack slung over one shoulder. His skin looked pale but not sickly, almost like frostbite. I figured he was just another drifter, someone running from something or towards something else. Happens all the time on these roads. We rode in silence for a while. I glanced at him a few times, but he kept staring out the windshield. Blank, unmoving, no phone, no fidgeting, not even a cough or a sniffle, just still. I tried to break the tension with some small talk. "You headed home or just drifting?" He turned his head slowly and said, "Just past the river." That phrase sent a tiny chill down my back. I didn't know why. There wasn't a river anywhere near that stretch of highway, at least not any that I knew of. Then something strange happened. I adjusted the rearview mirror to check behind me, and just for a second, a blink. He wasn't there. His seat was empty. My heart jumped, but when I looked directly to my right, he was sitting there again, completely still. They say the forests of Oregon hold more than just deer and pine. I never believed that sort of thing. Ghost stories, legends, whispers in the dark. I was always the rational type, the one who chalked up weird sounds to animals or wind, not something supernatural. That changed last fall, during what was supposed to be a solo weekend hike to clear my head. I had just finished a tough project at work and wanted some peace. No phone, no emails, no traffic, just me and the woods. I parked at the trailhead near Mount Hood, checked my pack, and started down the mossy trail just as the sun broke through the canopy above. The forest was stunning, lush, green, and quiet except for birdsong and the rustling of squirrels. I felt calm, at ease. But even then, there was something. A stillness beneath the quiet. An old wooden sign, almost swallowed by vines, caught my attention. It didn't say much, just the name of the trail, Whispering Pines. Something about the name lingered in my mind, but I shook it off. I mean, it sounded poetic, didn't it? Like something from a novel. I had no idea what was waiting deeper in those woods. A few hours into my hike, I noticed the birds had stopped singing. The air felt thicker somehow, heavier. I paused, listening. There was no sound, no wind, no insects, just silence. It was unsettling, but I told myself it was just part of being deep in the wilderness. Then came the whispers. At first I thought it was the wind, the way it moved through the trees. It almost sounded like voices, distant and unintelligible. But as I kept walking, they became more distinct, like hushed conversations happening just out of sight. I would stop and look around, but there was never anyone there. I laughed it off, told myself I was being paranoid. Still, I picked up the pace. I reached a clearing and sat down to rest, taking a long drink of water. That's when I noticed the trees. The one directly in front of me had long, deep gouges carved into its bark, claw marks. I examined them closely. They were fresh, too fresh, and way too deep for any normal animal. Then I heard it, a whisper, clear this time. It said my name. I jumped to my feet and spun around, but no one was there. My heart was pounding. I told myself someone was messing with me, maybe another hiker playing a cruel joke. But deep down, I didn't believe that. I turned back toward the trail, intending to head back the way I came, but the path was wrong, twisted. It didn't look the same. Panic began to set in. I used my GPS, but the signal was weak and glitching. I decided to retrace my steps manually, marking the trees as I walked. That's when I found an old campsite, half buried in leaves. The tent was shredded, like it had been clawed open. A rusted camping stove sat in the ashes of an old fire pit, and there under a rock was a faded photograph. It was of a young couple, smiling at the very clearing I had just passed through. On the back, in barely legible ink, were the words, "Don't listen to the voices." I spent that night in a makeshift shelter, unable to sleep. The whispers didn't stop. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they cried. Sometimes they said my name, over and over. By morning, I was determined to figure out what was going on. I hiked back to the town near the trailhead. At a small diner, I asked the locals about Whispering Pines. Most just shook their heads, but one old man leaned over and whispered, "That trail should have been sealed off years ago. Folks go missing up there." He told me about a legend, a spirit that lured hikers into the forest, using their names, their memories, their fears. It fed on confusion, isolation, fear. Despite the warnings, I went back. I had to know, had to see for myself. I thought I could beat it, expose whatever was hiding out there. I carried a camera, audio recorder, and GPS this time. I hiked fast, determined to get deeper than before. About 6 miles in, the whispers returned, this time louder, clearer. They weren't just saying my name. They were repeating things I had never told anyone. Private thoughts, things from my childhood, regrets, secrets. Then I saw her, a figure standing in the mist ahead, pale, still, wearing clothes that looked decades old. Her hair was long and tangled, her eyes empty. I froze. She raised a hand, pointing to the tree beside me. I turned. There were claw marks again, but this time, beneath them, carved into the bark, was my name. I stumbled back. The air turned freezing. My breath came out in clouds. The trees groaned and the ground trembled. Shadows twisted around me. I ran. Branches clawed at my face. The forest seemed endless, shifting. Every step felt like it led me deeper in, not out. Then I saw it, my car, just beyond the trees. I sprinted, not looking back, not until I slammed the door shut and locked it. I exhaled, safe, until I looked at the passenger window. My name, scratched into the glass, from the inside.